views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is Bronx Let's program where we talk to writers and editors and journalists and op-ed writers. I said that with emphasis for a reason. And really anybody putting stuff out. The second part of our show, we're going to talk to a Bronx author who has a new book out. But we're going to start off and we're going to talk about the city's business improvement district, specifically, and of course, the borough of the Bronx. It's my pleasure to welcome Rob Walsh. Many people know him. He's had a WINS radio program. He oversaw the city's bid program when he was a commissioner of the Department of Small Business Services under Michael Bloomberg. Welcome to the program, Rob Walsh.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you having me back.
And you know, it wouldn't be me if I didn't say, let's get firsthand impressions. And so the executive director of the Third Avenue bid is my longtime friend and colleague, Michael Brady. Nice to have you with us, Michael.
Great. Thanks so much, Gary. Really appreciate being here today.
Rob, you had that, I thought, very powerful editorial in Gotham Gazette, and you talked about the importance of business improvement districts. Number one, what is the importance of the business improvement districts? And number two, why do we need an op-ed piece on it? What's the problem? So let's start.
There's a couple of things. First, the why business improvement districts is a great way of engaging the private sector, merchants, residents of a community in a neighborhood to make things better, starting with quality of life, making streets safer, making them cleaner, bringing merchants and leadership around the table with elected officials to make neighborhoods better. And it has been a proven tool. You know, there's 76 business improvement districts throughout the city. The Bronx, we have seen some great examples, you know, from Fordham Road to the Third Avenue bid of things that have worked out. Why the op-ed piece? Well, I think that the Bronx has been wronged. The fact that you had a number of people that wanted to come together at Mott Haven to make their neighborhood better, particularly now, during a time where there is a crisis, during a time when sanitation budgets are cut, during a time when we need leadership to come together to make our neighborhoods better, that the city ends up slowing the process down and telling a neighborhood that they should sit on the sidelines because the city fears what a business improvement district could do. And to me, that is wrongheaded.
Explain to me when you say the city fears. I mean, what could be, and we'll talk about some of the difficulties of starting a bid. I mean,
let's just say it. It's the word development and gentrification. And in this case, it's a case of residents. It's a case of merchants and small businesses coming together to have their trash cans emptied, to have graffiti removed, to make their neighborhood safer, to fill vacancies in storefronts. There's so much momentum going on in places like Mott Haven, where they have leadership, leverage that leadership, and they went in, Gary, with a plan. They went in with boundaries. They went in with services, and the city said, no, we fear that. That is a mistake. You know,
let's bring in Michael Brady. And Michael knows that I've been down there plenty in Mott Haven, and I feel the energy. And frankly, Michael Brady and I have had discussions about the line between good development and gentrification and displacement. Where are you at over there on the Third Avenue bid? I know there's a lot of energy on Southern Boulevard and a lot of the streets that you work on. But what, from your perspective, what is the problem? Why is Rob right?
Well, I think, Rob is 100% right. And, I think he brings a wealth of knowledge, not only in his role as being the former commissioner of SBS, but also Rob has on the ground knowledge of bid formation with the Union Square Partnership and getting, the city's first business improvement district up and running. And, I think the South Bronx has been dealt a raw deal. Whether it's most recently with the pandemic or just prior. And, here we have a group of committed stakeholders with CBOs in the role of the Third Avenue Business Improvement District who want to harness the neighborhood energy to deliver baseline quality of life services here. We're not talking about building skyscrapers or paving over parks. We're talking about planting trees, emptying garbage cans, removing graffiti, developing small businesses, creating a small business incubator. All of these are the things that we've been able to do as an organization over the past 3 years because we've been privately funded by property owners through a contract with them. All because the city of New York told us when we met with them, you should put that on the back burner. That neighborhood is way too politicized right now. It's going to stoke the idea of gentrification. Put it on the back burner right now. And I gotta say, if we did not provide those services through an alternate track, the neighborhood wouldn't be where it is today. And that's a very sad thing.
And what's interesting, I'm going to start with you, Michael, and then we'll ask Rob Walsh the same question. You say that the business owners have put in funding to make sure that they get these services. My question was going to be, one of the issues with starting a bid is getting the buy-in from, what is it, 2/3 of the businesses have to agree to put that in. If they're putting in that money anyway, and you're saying they're already doing it, number one, it indicates that a desire to say, we'll make the commitment. And number two, let's do it, formulate, and do a better job, right?
Exactly. I think that the stakeholders in the area have seen that, bid services, contractual bid services, are far better than the city services, particularly in a time when the city services are being cut, in some cases up to 75%. And there is a demand, and you have stakeholders in the area, from property owners to small businesses, who are saying, hey, I want to pony up. I want to participate in this because I'm seeing the value add of this organization. And they've seen it, even just in the pandemic, whether it was deploying small business grants, which Third Avenue did a better job in the city of New York. We deployed over $1.3 million worth of grants to Bronx businesses, to installing outdoor dining modules, to working with business and property owners to renegotiate leases or renegotiate their debt so they could stay open. That's an area that the city of New York has not done.
And you, I know, very, very active in assisting businesses getting their proper funding during the pandemic, the PPP grants and all that. Rob Walsh, you know what small businesses go through anyway and what they're going through now. Is it even reasonable to knock on the door of a small business owner or a store owner or a small merchant and say, hey, I got a bill you got to pay because you should participate in the bid? Isn't that a reasonable question? Because a business owner is going to say, I got no money, I'm trying to survive. Is this a time to ask them for money to participate in the bid?
It is a time, because this is a time where we're in a crisis. You got to remember, the city, put a meat cleaver to the sanitation budget. The trash cans are not being emptied. Basic services that we're talking about. The city is never going to help a guy like Mike Brady fill the vacancies of the storefronts. It has to come from the ground up. You got to remember, bids were created when there was a crisis. We have a crisis again. And the leadership, whether it's the mayor, whether the commissioner, when you have this energy, this creativity with the small businesses, property owners coming together, you take advantage of that, because it's an extra tool to make our city a better place.
Is there a limit? In other words, would you then recommend, I don't know, I don't want to single out any neighborhood in the Bronx and say, well, that's a good idea, but that neighborhood is not right. I know that you say that Mott Haven is right. Or would you say, anybody that wants to do it, I think it's a good idea?
I think you look at whatever, whoever, puts something up, if they have a good idea that they want to spend more money, that they want to put more resources into making our city a better place, you take a look at it. And in a case like Mott Haven, you don't end up saying, oh, look at the website. you walk the district, you talk to the property owners, you make an effort, an extra effort to bring people together around a table. And that is what has not taken place in the Bronx. And the Bronx keeps getting the short end of the stick on this.
And and Michael Brady knows I've been down at Third Avenue plenty. And so you go Monday morning and there's garbage. You understand the weekend. I get that. But when I go on a Tuesday morning or a Wednesday morning and I see, people nowadays, of course, lining up for all kinds of services, whether it be food or whatever, and there's just disgusting garbage in the street. I go crazy. I know Michael Brady agrees with that. I want to ask you, Michael, about Mott Haven. Now, your bid, does it go as far as Mott Haven and then you would lose some of that property? Or if in fact there was let's visualize, then you would kind of work in partnership with whomever is working on that.
Sure. So currently the Third Avenue bid boundaries go from 148th Street to 153rd Street on Third Avenue, plus about 150 feet on Elton. We're in the process of doing an expansion on Third Avenue, and we're about to complete that. We're about 2.5 years in. But about three and a half years ago, we started providing contractual services along Bruckner Boulevard with the idea that eventually that would become a business improvement district. The right ingredients were there. You have an increasing residential population. You have industrial reuse of the majority of the waterfront. You have small businesses that are opening. There's an emerging commercial sector. So, we started the process of, okay, well, let's really take a look at this. And the property owners and the business owners said, well, we want these services now. We want to be able to have a CBO that we can rely on to provide these economic development services. So we've started and we've continued to offer these services as a contract with the property owners in that area. Now, the idea of creating a bid in that district could be done in a couple of ways. It could be done as
about a minute, so wrap it up. Go ahead.
Sure, it could be done in a standalone business improvement district, or it could be done as a non-contiguous portion of Third Avenue bid, or as a local development corporation. All of those are fair models to look at.
All we got to do is decide that that's what we want to do. Rob Walsh, got about 30 seconds. We're going to have a new borough president. We're going to have a new mayor. Is this the time to do it, or you wait till you get new people in? I mean, what do you see as next step?
I say you try to do it as quick as possible. I hope this administration has the energy. So far, they have not shown the energy. I would think that after an article like that the commissioner would have been up walking the district. That has not happened.
Well, listen, we're going to have to figure out ways to rejuvenate our neighborhoods. Frankly, I'm all for it. Working together is the way to do it. Rob Walsh, thank you so much. Michael Brady, thank you so much. Folks, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, it's the guy who wrote this book right over my shoulder here, Shoebox Full of Money. Martin Kleinman will join us. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Who's most at risk for coronavirus? People over 65, people with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes, people undergoing cancer treatment, and people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people. Avoid crowds. Stay home if you can. Wash your hands frequently. Learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
Okay, welcome back to the Bronx Buzz. As I said earlier, we have a very special guest. He's special because he's my friend, but he's just come out now, if I get it right, with his second collection of short stories. It is from the Bronx, Martin Kleinman. Nice to have you with us, Marty.
Nice, great to be here.
Most people, I call them Mr. or Ms., but you and I'm gonna have to call you Marty. You're gonna have to just go with it.
I'll go with it.
And what I'm gonna do is, like, live on television. Behind me is, where is it? It's the book that we're talking about, because I wanted to make a big dramatic moment. So this is it. And we'll give Arlene Alda and her Just Kids from the Bronx book a chance to shine. But here it is, ladies and gentlemen, A Shoebox Full of Money by Marty Kleinman just came out. It's got some great short stories. Marty, just tell me about the how you created it, why you thought about it. I was thinking a good question to ask is, why short stories? Why does that fit into what you wanted to do?
Well, these are stories that have been percolating in the old noggin for the last 5 years or so. And my writing technique is, if it's bothering me, if I'm really upset about something, then I know there's a germ of a story there. And so I can't rest until that story is on the paper or in the computer. And so for the last 5 years, I've been working on these 20 stories in A Shoebox Full of Money. And I find that they're resonating with people, young, old, from New York, and expatriate New Yorkers from all over the country, from all over the world, because they deal with elemental issues of aging, of the changing nature of the workplace, of the randomness of human existence. But it's not just theoretical stuff. I try and isolate a particular incident or a particular family that is affected by these things and zoom in on them. So one of my old teachers had a line that really rings true, and that is, if 1 million people die, it's a statistic. If one person dies, it's a tragedy. And that's kind of the technique I use in creating the stories in Shoebox.
One of the things that I really appreciate, and we're going to review exactly what they are, is that you connect up things in personal lives along with mega events. One of them, in fact, is the shooting of John Lennon. To me, that's a really interesting way of looking at the world, because after all, we all look at the world like that. What's going on in my life, and then larger issues, of course, now the presidency and the storming of the Capitol building and all these other things. If you were to tell that story, but tell it through my life or my producer Rebecca's life or anybody's life, your own life, that's what A Shoebox Full of Money, I want to make sure people see it, is all about.
No, absolutely. I remember it was Pete Hamill did the great column when JFK was assassinated, and all the reporters were chasing the usual suspects, and it was Pete Hamill who got the point of view of the gravedigger of JFK, and he did the column from the gravedigger's point of view. Whammo! That's a totally, taking the diamond and just changing the facets that you're looking at, and that's what I try and do here.
As I look at all the different stories, and I'm so proud that my name is on the back of it. I made a little comment there, and I want to just reiterate what I wrote. You see yourself. You. By the way, folks won't know we're recording this on Wednesday, but Tuesday night, Marty did a reading of some of the stories. You read a little bit about growing up in the Bronx, and I guess we're of a similar generation.
Sure.
And it was always basketball and baseball, and that's what we did all day. The minute I read that, I was like, well, yeah, that is who we are. And I really feel like you could see yourself in these stories, especially if you're, I guess I'm no longer a Bronx kid, although I view myself as being a Bronx kid, but I feel like that's who we are. This is our city. This is who we are.
Oh, absolutely. And if you find that when you're doing a reading, when I'm doing a reading with a mixed age group, afterwards, invariably the audience will come over to me, especially some of the younger generation and people in their 20s, and they would say, my dad and my grandfather always told me these stories, and I always thought that it was just a lot of hot air. but apparently they were right. And
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
really the way it was.
it's fascinating. Of course, your experience as a writer, and it comes through, and you got a little style in there. I think if I remember correctly, something I heard at the reading last night was something like, "Oh, I was listening to my iPod shuffling along." I thought that was just brilliant because that's, of course, how we all listen to our iPod.
Yep.
All right, now we're gonna do it live and in person. We're gonna do a reading, right? You're gonna give us listen. You can read the whole freaking book, but let's do a short reading. This is Martin Kleinman, Shoebox Full of Money. Which segment or which story is this from?
So yeah, I'm going to read
I'm
a
gonna read along.
Yeah, I'm going to read a short segment from Kenny Swam the Hudson. I mean, this is basically it's a story of a bunch of high school kids back in the summer of love, really decades ago. And these are Bronx primitives. These are kids that really are very provincial. They really don't know Manhattan at all. They don't know, they come from the Bronxy part of the Bronx. They really don't know other parts of the Bronx and that there's a wider world out there. And one of their friends, Kenny, in those days, he was hippie-ish. He goes to San Francisco and they thought, well, he'd come back and they'd all, start their freshman year at the city college. But things went awry. So I'm going to
Let's do it.
dip into that. Kenny lived with his family in Fortress Riverdale, high atop the Terminal Moraine, west of Broadway, in the Northwest Bronx, up where the swells lived. It was there in leafy splendor that JFK once lived, as did Mark Twain and Arturo Toscanini. Fortress Riverdale, to us urchins from the careworn Bronxy Bronx, was revered as heaven on earth. We could only imagine their life upon those hills. There, we figured there were no push and burglaries or car thefts or purse snatchings. In Fortress Riverdale, junkies didn't hoist themselves up dumbwaiters and break into your apartment, toss your belongings, your life. In Fortress Riverdale, apartments were toasty warm in winter. No one need to bang on a radiator in the bedroom with a wrench, a violent signal for the super to turn up the heat. In Fortress Riverdale, people had wall-to-wall carpeting, not throw rugs, circuit breakers, not 15-amp glass fuses, and frost-free refrigerators, not ancient igloos. In Fortress Riverdale, kids got braces, piano lessons, ski vacations. Parents didn't fight. Car batteries didn't die. Sick pets were taken to the vet. Success was both expected and assured. No wonder we loved Kenny, even as we understood that in the big circus of life, he was working with a net.
Very good. Listen, if you're talking about real life in the Bronx and core issues, there it is. You just underscored it. You underscored it beautifully. What I want to ask you, you brought up in the beginning, and I really think it's very interesting, process. You said you've been gestating these stories for a very long time. Are you the sort that kind of like put your head on the pillow and then writes them, and then when you wake up in the morning you say, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking of? Because when I write or when I try to create something or even think of a show that I want to do on BronxNet, that it's like, oh yeah, okay, and then in the morning I go and act that. Is that how you write, or do you write in a different way?
It's even worse than that. Not only do I have those brainstorms at night and then I rush to the machine in the morning, but I have wherever my perches are, by the bed, in the living room, in the car, I have little pads and pencils and my reading glasses, and I'm forever writing down on little scraps of paper idea. Or if I'm reading the many papers, I'll print out an article and create files. So I have tons and tons of papers all over the house, much to the chagrin of my wife.
I was just going to
clean it up.
I was just going to say, Ronnie must be a real queen because she's living with you, man. And you got your papers all over the place.
Ain't easy.
Listen, in this book, A Shoebox Full of Money, the stories, we only have a couple of minutes, but the Bess Meyerson story is fascinating. It's right up front. Some know and some don't know that she grew up in the Bronx, actually right near where I live, as a matter of fact. So let's start there and just chat about what was fascinating about her and the way you interpreted her life.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting because as a kid growing up in the Bronx, I knew of Bess Meyerson. I mean, when you're a kid, anybody over 30 is an old lady. But I knew of her, I saw her on TV, and then her career did not end in the best way. But when I moved back to the Bronx after 25 years in Brooklyn, I was talking to an older person around the neighborhood here, and she happened to mention the Sholem Aleichem houses.
Yes.
And she happened to mention a scene. She said, you know, I remember as a girl, Bess Meyerson came and strode across the courtyard, and people were screaming out the window because cheering her like she was a returning Super Bowl champion.
Well, she was Miss America, let's be clear.
And I heard that, and I'm like, that's a story, but I couldn't quite figure out how to do it. It took a little time, but I was able to basically use that little sequence as the foundation of a larger story, largely invented her life, but used it to get across some major themes. And it worked out quite well.
It came out great. Also, the connection with, you know, what's going on in our lives in the Bronx and kids growing up, and then the death of John Lennon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all in there. A Shoebox Full of Money. Congratulations on the book. You know, when's the next one? No. We'll give you a chance to collect some more little papers.
Absolutely.
Do
Listen,
you have one in your mind by any chance?
actually, I'm working on a story now, you know, because
I
the
know.
stories that I hear are 3 or so years in the making, but the next batch is going to be, well, the next story that I'm working on right now is COVID related, obviously, but it's got to be a new take on it.
Talk about events going on, and that's how you relate it.
Absolutely.
Great Martin Kleinman, author of Shoebox Full of Money. Pick it up. I'm going to say goodbye to you. I'm going to thank our producer. I'm going to move Arlene Alder back to the second deck to the loge, and then we'll go from there. Marty, congratulations on the book.
Thanks
And
so
it'll be
much.
up there behind us. Anybody who wants to know what it's about, there it is.
Thanks so much, and thanks for having me.
And we'll see you all folks next week. Thanks to Rob Walsh and Michael Brady talking about the Bronx Bid and Bronx Bids. And we'll see you next week.